Imagine taking a test that directs the course of your entire future. According to Noah Webster Educational Foundation, the average student takes 112 standardized tests from kindergarten to 12th grade. This shows that standardized tests are a key part of the public education system. This means that talking about the effectiveness of standardized tests is a very important discussion to have. Good morning. My name is Alfonso Cruz.
My name is Daniel Hernandez.
My name is Ricardo Domingos.
My name is Chase Harrimans. Our research question is, to what extent have standardized tests been effective at improving the education of students in the United States? Our argument is that standardized testing has been ineffective at improving the education for students in the United States for the following reasons: that there's unfairness in tests, there's persistent cheating practices, and the stress that it inflicts on test takers.
Our solution to this problem is to completely eliminate standardized tests from being used.
Standardized tests, initially promoted as a tool to measure academic success, is now seen as an amplifier of inequality. This is due to the test's restrictive nature, which impedes it from accommodating every student in their specific situation. One example of this is low-income students, because due to their lack of financial stability, they have little to no access to test preparation material and special tutoring session, which provides students with exercise and strategy specific to such tests. This will put students with a wealthier background at an advantage from those less privileged peers, making the test more about socioeconomic status rather than academic skills. Furthermore, low-income students are also often sabotaged by stress. This is because in order to combat their lack of money, they start enrolling into part-time and full-time jobs. As we can see in this graphic by the Maine Department of Education, in 2007, there were 34 low-income students in the workforce, and in 2015, it increased to 47%. The students enrolled in job duties as well as their education, which is already considered a stressful situation, can cause a stress surplus, which can impair their cognitive functions, such as attention, working memory, and reasoning. Here, in this graph, we have the achievement gap as of 2017. This shows the different test performances between ethnic groups, and we can see how Hispanics often have a lower test performance than white students. This because, as the article Standardized Testing and Non-Standardized Votes explains, there's legislative acts such as the No Child Left Behind Act, which require the students to have a similar proficiency level as the native students. Asking an English learning student to perform at the same level as somebody that has been studying the language for many years just serves to show how these tests ignore the learning curve and promote inequalities. Since these students are being tested in such unfair measurements, such as unequal access to test preparation materials, heightened stress exposure, and unrealistic expectations, the information provided by the test results are going to be inaccurate and therefore unuseful for improving the education in the United States.
The graph on the left shows the achievement gap between racial demographics, as well as the achievement gap between socioeconomic backgrounds. At the top, we can see that white students perform significantly better than Black and Latino students. And at the bottom, we can see that low-income students typically perform poorly on standardized tests. In fact, if you look at the graph on the right, we can see that parent income rank is directly proportional to SAT scores. According to the impact of standardized tests on minority students by Robert L. Green and Robert J. Grifford, traditionally, test constructors have been white and middle class. This lack of diversity is disadvantageous for students from different cultural and socioeconomic backgrounds. These biases compromise the validity of standardized tests. The impacts of standardized testing on minority students also shows a study of Black fourth graders taking Gray's oral reading test. 46% of errors could be attributed to dialect differences. This shows that standardized tests do not align with the linguistic diversity in many communities. This further reinforces our argument that standardized tests are biased measures of aptitude.
Furthermore, cheating has also been a prevalent issue in standardized testing. As you can see in this graph, one investigation done in Atlanta school system reported that on average, 87% of classrooms per school reported cheating of some sort. Now this cheating is accomplished in multiple ways. For one, and most obviously, students cheat due to the emphasis placed on them by these standardized tests. Standardized tests are supposed to gauge students' intellect and ability and improve how colleges are able to evaluate them. However, this only places more stress on the students, and as Sharon Ellen Nicole states, in the pressure to cheat in a high-stakes testing environment, as test-related pressure increases, students' logical decision-making decreases, and this decision-making is what allows them to refrain from cheating. But as the pressure increases more and more, the cheating increases more and more. As you can see, as 68% of undergrad students reported admit written or test cheating. More surprising, however, is that teachers have also been reported to be cheating. This is because in recent years, teachers have been evaluated to the same or even higher standards that students have by the standardized tests. This affects their pay, ranking, and overall success in the educational field. This results in them cheating in multiple ways. For one, they teach the test. This gives student knowledge about specific materials, standards, and questions that will be on these tests to help them improve their grade and subsequently reflect on the teacher's supposed teaching skills. As you can see, by a poll done with teachers, 41% of them reported that they were cheating through teaching to the test. However, a staggering 57% of them reported the cheating involved teachers directly interacting with students to give them the correct answers. This encompasses giving students answers, telling them to skip or be absent on test days, or even, as Jacob Pibel states, in bad apples or bad orchards, cleaning up the tests, which involves teachers going back to the tests and changing the students' answers to the correct ones on the tests. This all shows how these tests place too much of an emphasis on students and teachers, and because of that, the validity of these tests are being compromised. This overall undermines the original purpose of implementing these standardized tests into the education system to evaluate students and teachers in the first place.
Anxiety and stress are two words that are constantly used when talking about standardized tests. This graph right here shows the different type of test anxiety and the specific percentages of 200 students for every 200 students in the U.S. when taking this type of exam. Adding on this chart right here shows a couple of states of the U.S. and their specific percentages of students that have admitted being stressed out every day leading up to this type of exam. And test and anxiety are a problem that have to be taught because they are clearly affecting students in every way. And since, according to a report that Pete Adams said, stress and anxiety have decreased academic performance, lower self-efficacy, and impaired problem solving throughout all levels of education. With this said, it is clear that standardized testing, instead of improving students' education, it has decreased the health of students and their education overall. So our first solution was the quantity of standardized testing should be improved to allow for a fair evaluation of students and educators. Our limitations for this solution were that we'll still give students stress in preparing for the standardized test, cheating will remain constant, and will require significant financial resources.
The second solution was to reduce the quantity of standardized tests. Our limitations are that it will cause standardized tests to be higher stakes, and it could result in worse cheating, more stress, and could perpetuate the bias of the test.
And our third solution, the solution that we're arguing for, is that standardized tests should be omitted from the public education system. The limitations of the solution is that it will not provide an insight into the level of education being delivered to students, and it might not provide students who need assistance the help they need. For example, students that are placed into intensive reading classes from their standardized test scores. These graphs show a clear correlation between GPA, ACT, and SAT scores, showing that GPA is sufficient to evaluate students' performance.
In conclusion, while standardized testing allows for teachers and students to be evaluated, it does so inadequately and poses too high a risk for students and teachers. This leads to many negative effects, which include unfairness in testing environments, cheating on standardized testing, and stress and anxiety in students. This is our works cited.
All right, we'll start here, work our way across, because that's what I've been doing. Describe an argument from one of your peers' reports that makes you think differently about the solution that you guys came up with.
So Danny's argument talks about the backgrounds of the people that take this exam and how it affects the outcome of the standardized tests, since they don't have much they are not adapted to these students in specific, so this changes our perspective.
Okay. Reflecting on your colleagues' work, which one had the greatest impact on your understanding of the topic you guys identified?
I would say that Danny's argument had the biggest impact on my understanding, because we found similar pieces of evidence, but Danny had evidence that connected our arguments with Michaela's about stress and anxiety. So that helped me understand how together we could reach a solution for our problem.
All right. Chase, is there an argument that you guys didn't use from one of your IRRs? And then if you didn't, why didn't you use it?
One of the arguments that we didn't use from one of our IRs was Michaela's, where she talked about more of the mental health aspect of stress, but that didn't really fit in our presentation and would have sidetracked our argument more than assisted.
All right. And Danny, how did your group decide how to use Alfonso's perspective in your presentation?
Well, Alfonso and I had very similar perspective. Mine talk about unfairness and like backgrounds, and he was about bias in the test. So we decided to combine both of our perspective in order to give a more complete explanation of our topic.
You guys are done.